The bank statement arrived on a Tuesday morning. Just a regular white envelope, nothing special about it. I almost tossed it aside with the rest of the mail. Bills, advertisements, the usual stuff. But something made me tear it open first. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way the paper felt a little too thin, a little too light. I pulled out the single sheet, my eyes scanning the numbers automatically. Then I stopped. My breath caught in my throat. The balance read $847.23. $847.23. That's all that was left of my life savings. 43 years of work, of sacrifice, of careful planning for retirement. Gone. I'm Helen, 58 years old, from Denver, Colorado. I've been a nurse for most of my adult life. Started right out of college, worked double shifts, saved every penny I could. I lived modestly, drove used cars, bought generic groceries, clipped coupons. Everything I did was for the future, for retirement, for security. And for my daughter, Zoe. Everything was always for Zoe. The transactions on the statement told a story I didn't want to believe. Wire transfers, cash withdrawals, electronic payments. All authorized by someone with access to my account. Someone who knew my passwords, my security questions, my financial history. Someone I trusted completely. The dates went back 6 months. 6 months of systematic theft, of careful planning, of deliberate deception. My hands shook as I read each line. $5,000 here, $8,000 there, $12,000 the week before. It was surgical, precise, calculated. Not desperate or impulsive, but methodical. Professional. Zoe is 26 now. She graduated from college 3 years ago with a degree in marketing. I paid for that college, every semester, every textbook, every meal plan. I was so proud when she walked across that stage. My baby girl, my only child, making something of herself. After graduation, she moved back in with me. Just temporarily, she said. Just until she found her footing, got a good job, saved some money. I understood. The job market was tough. Young people needed support. I was happy to help. She told me she was working at a small marketing firm downtown. Entry-level position, not great pay, but good experience. She'd leave every morning at 8, dressed professionally, carrying a leather portfolio I'd bought her as a graduation gift. She'd come home around 6, tired but optimistic. We'd have dinner together, talk about her day, her coworkers, her projects. She seemed happy, motivated, building toward something. I was proud of her work ethic, her determination. But there were signs. Little things that didn't quite add up. Designer handbags that appeared in her room. Expensive shoes lined up in the closet. New clothes hanging in the wardrobe, tags still attached. When I asked about them, she always had an explanation. A friend let me borrow this. I got this on sale. My boss gave me a bonus. It all sounded reasonable. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust my daughter. Her car was another puzzle. She'd been driving my old Honda, the one I'd had for 8 years. Reliable but nothing fancy. Then one day, she came home in a brand new BMW. Sleek, silver, expensive. My heart stopped when I saw it in the driveway. Zoe, I said, my voice careful, controlled. Where did this come from? She smiled, that bright smile that had melted my heart since she was 3 years old. Oh, Mom, she said, practically bouncing with excitement. The company leased it for me. They want me to look professional when I meet clients. It's part of my job now. I wanted to question it further, but she seemed so happy, so confident. And I didn't want to be the suspicious, overbearing mother. I'd raised her to be independent, to make her own decisions. If her company was investing in her that way, maybe she was doing better than I thought. Maybe I was worrying for nothing. The apartment came next. Zoe announced it casually over dinner one evening, twirling her fork in her pasta. I found a place, Mom, she said. Downtown, near work. It'll be so much easier than commuting. I can walk to the office. My stomach dropped. An apartment downtown was expensive, way beyond what an entry-level marketing position should afford. But again, she had explanations. Roommate to split the costs. Company housing assistance. Employee discounts. Each answer felt rehearsed, practiced, polished. I helped her move on a Saturday morning. The apartment was beautiful, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows and hardwood floors. The rent had to be at least $3,000 a month, maybe more. The furniture was all new, expensive-looking pieces that matched perfectly. A leather sectional sofa, a glass dining table, artwork on the walls. This is lovely, Zoe, I said, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. She beamed, gave me a tour, showed me the walk-in closet filled with designer clothes, the bathroom with luxury toiletries, the kitchen with high-end appliances. For months, I pushed down the nagging feeling that something was wrong. Zoe seemed happy, successful, independent. She'd call me regularly, invite me for dinner occasionally, remember my birthday and holidays. She was my daughter, my only family, my greatest achievement. I wanted to believe in her success, in her happiness. I wanted to trust her. The vacations should have been the final clue. Zoe started traveling frequently, posting photos on social media from exotic locations. Beaches in Thailand, cafes in Paris, ski resorts in Switzerland. When I asked about them, she explained they were work trips, conferences, client meetings. The company was expanding internationally, she said. They needed someone young and adaptable to handle overseas accounts. I was so proud of her opportunities, her advancement. My daughter was seeing the world, living the life I'd never been able to afford. But the bank statement in my hands told a different story. The timing of the withdrawals matched perfectly with her purchases, her trips, her lifestyle changes. While I was working extra shifts to rebuild my savings, while I was eating canned soup for dinner to save money, while I was postponing my own retirement plans, my daughter was living like a millionaire. With my money. My life's work. My future. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the numbers until they blurred. My mind raced through every interaction, every conversation, every explanation Zoe had given me. The pieces fitted together like a jigsaw puzzle, forming a picture I didn't want to see. The company lease on the BMW was a lie. The roommate splitting the apartment costs was fiction. The work trips to Europe were vacations funded by theft. Everything was a lie, a carefully constructed fantasy built on my savings account. The betrayal cut deeper than the financial loss. This wasn't a stranger scamming me over the phone or a criminal stealing my purse. This was my daughter, the person I loved most in the world, the person I'd sacrificed everything for. She'd looked me in the eye for months, smiled, hugged me, told me she loved me, all while systematically stealing my future. It was personal, intimate, devastating. I called the bank first. The customer service representative was polite but firm. All the transactions were authorized by someone with legitimate access to the account. The passwords were correct, the security questions answered properly. Without evidence of fraud or identity theft, there was nothing they could do. My own daughter had access to my account information because I'd trusted her with it. During her college years, I'd added her as an authorized user so she could make emergency purchases if needed. I'd never removed that access. I'd never imagined I'd need to. The police were my next call. I explained the situation to a detective, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He listened patiently, took notes, asked questions. But the conclusion was the same. Because Zoe had legitimate access to the account, because I'd given her that access willingly, it wasn't technically theft. It was a civil matter, a family dispute. They couldn't arrest her, couldn't force her to return the money. I'd have to pursue it through civil court, hire a lawyer, prove my case. It would be expensive, time-consuming, and uncertain. For 3 days, I didn't contact Zoe. I needed time to process, to plan, to decide what to do next. I researched lawyers, read articles about financial abuse, tried to understand my legal options. The prognosis wasn't good. Even if I won a civil case, collecting the money would be difficult. She'd already spent most of it. The BMW could be repossessed, the apartment lease could be broken, but the vacations, the clothes, the experiences were gone forever. On the 4th day, Zoe called me. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "Haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers. Instead, I kept my voice neutral. "Actually, Zoe," I said, "I need to see you. We need to talk." There was a pause, a shift in her tone. "About what?" she asked. I could hear the caution creeping in. "Just come over," I said. "Please." She arrived an hour later, still dressed in her professional facade. Tailored pants, silk blouse, expensive heels. She looked successful, confident, completely unbothered. She hugged me like always, kissed my cheek, asked about my day. I led her to the kitchen table, the bank statements still lying there like evidence at a crime scene. "Sit down," I said. Zoe's eyes found the statement immediately. Her face went pale, then flushed, then pale again. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I watched her carefully, searching for remorse, for shame, for some sign that she understood what she'd done. Instead, I saw calculation, fear, and something else. Defiance. "Mom," she started, her voice shaky. "I can explain." I waited, giving her the chance to come clean, to tell the truth, to show some hint of the daughter I'd raised. The words that came out were more lies. "It's not what it looks like," she said. "The company had some financial issues. They asked me to cover expenses temporarily. They're going to reimburse me. It's all above board. I swear." I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots I'd taken of her social media posts. The luxury vacations, the designer purchases, the expensive restaurants. "Is this what your company reimbursed you for?" I asked. The silence was deafening. Zoe's composure cracked slightly. Her hands fidgeted with her purse strap. "Mom," she said finally, "I was going to tell you. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time to figure things out." The truth came out in fragments, reluctantly, like pulling teeth. There was no marketing job. She'd never worked at the firm downtown. She'd been living off my savings for over a year, creating an elaborate fantasy to hide the theft. The BMW was leased under my credit, using my financial information. The apartment deposit had come from my account. The vacations, the clothes, the lifestyle were all funded by my 43 years of work. My retirement fund had become her personal trust fund. "But why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this to me?" Zoe's answer revealed a stranger wearing my daughter's face. "Because I deserve it," she said, her voice growing stronger, more defiant. "Because I'm young and I wanted to live. Because you were just going to sit on that money anyway. Because you never gave me anything growing up. We lived in that tiny apartment, shopped at thrift stores, never went anywhere. I wanted more. I deserved more." The words hit me like physical blows. Every sacrifice I'd made, every double shift I'd worked, every luxury I denied myself to save for her college and our future had been twisted into neglect in her mind. She saw my frugality as stinginess, my planning as hoarding. She felt entitled to my life's work because she'd been deprived of immediate gratification as a child. The logic was staggering, breathtaking in its selfishness. I asked her to leave. My voice was calm, steady, final. "Get out," I said. "Take your lies and your excuses and get out of my house." Zoe's mask slipped completely then. She became the entitled, spoiled person she'd been hiding. "Fine," she screamed. "Keep your precious money. I don't need you anyway. I never did." The door slammed behind her with such force that the windows rattled. For a week, I wallowed in grief. Not just for the money, but for the daughter I thought I'd raised. I'd failed somewhere, somehow. I'd created a monster and been too blind to see it. I questioned every decision, every choice, every moment of her upbringing. The shame was overwhelming, suffocating. I'd been played by my own child, manipulated by someone I'd loved unconditionally. But grief has a way of transforming into something else when you let it sit long enough. Anger, determination, a quiet, burning resolve. Zoe thought I was weak, that I'd just accept her betrayal and move on. She thought I was the same passive, self-sacrificing mother who'd enabled her behavior for years. She was wrong. I started with research. Deep, thorough investigation into Zoe's real life. The marketing firm she'd claimed to work for had never heard of her. Her LinkedIn profile was carefully constructed fiction. Her references were friends posing as supervisors. But social media doesn't lie, and Zoe had been careless with her posts. Geotagged locations, time-stamped photos, tagged friends. A complete record of her deception. The BMW lease was in my name, secured by my credit and financial information. I called the dealership, explained the situation. As the primary lessee, I had the right to terminate the lease and reclaim the vehicle. They were professional, understanding, efficient. The repossession was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Zoe's apartment lease was more complicated, but not impossible. I'd unknowingly co-signed as a guarantor, my signature forged on documents using my financial information. With a lawyer's help, I could prove fraud, void the lease, and potentially pursue criminal charges. The process would be slow, but the legal foundation was solid. The vacations and purchases were harder to address directly, but they'd left digital trails. Credit card statements, bank records, receipts, social media posts. Everything documented, time-stamped, geotagged. Evidence of a systematic pattern of theft and deception. My lawyer called it a prosecutor's dream case. Tuesday morning came gray and cold. I positioned myself across the street from Zoe's apartment building, coffee in hand, watching and waiting. The tow truck arrived at exactly 9 a.m. Professional, efficient, no drama. The BMW was loaded and gone within 15 minutes. I allowed myself a small smile. Phase 1 complete. Zoe's phone call came 30 minutes later. "My car's been stolen," she screamed into the phone. "Someone took it from the parking garage. I'm calling the police." I let her vent, her voice growing more frantic with each word. Then I spoke, my voice calm and steady. "It wasn't stolen, Zoe. It was repossessed. The lease was in my name, remember? And since you can't pay me back, I terminated it." The silence was profound. I could hear her breathing, could almost see the wheels turning in her mind. "You can't do this," she said finally. "I need that car. I have a job interview tomorrow." I almost laughed. Still lying, even now. "What job interview, Zoe? At what company? With what qualifications?" The fantasy was crumbling around her, and we both knew it. I hung up the phone and dialed my lawyer. The apartment lease fraud case was moving forward. Zoe would be evicted within 30 days, and criminal charges were being filed. The theft of my savings would be harder to prosecute, but the forged documents and identity fraud were clear violations. My lawyer was confident, professional, thorough. Justice would be slow, but it would come. Zoe tried everything over the next few weeks. Tears, anger, threats, promises. She claimed she was pregnant, then sick, then suicidal. Each lie was more desperate than the last. Her friends called me, her boyfriend, even her college roommate. They all had the same message. Zoe was struggling, needed help, deserved forgiveness. I listened politely and hung up. None of them knew the truth. None of them had lost their life savings to fund her lies. The eviction notice was served on a Friday. Zoe called me in tears, begging, pleading. "Mom, please," she sobbed. "I have nowhere to go. I'm your daughter. You can't do this to me. I'm family." The word family hit me like a slap. Family doesn't steal from family, I told her. Family doesn't lie to family for months. Family doesn't forge documents and commit fraud. You stopped being my family the moment you decided my life's work was your personal ATM. I changed my phone number that weekend, blocked her on social media, closed all joint accounts and changed every password. I installed a security system and deadbolts on my doors. Zoe had proven she couldn't be trusted, and I wasn't taking any chances. The woman who'd raised her might have been naive, but the woman she'd created was not. The criminal charges were filed on Monday. Fraud, identity theft, forgery, each carrying potential jail time. Zoe was arrested at her friend's house, where she'd been staying since the eviction. The mugshot in the newspaper showed a different person than the daughter I'd raised. Hollow-eyed, desperate, defeated. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a deep, profound sadness for what we'd both lost. The trial was swift and decisive. Zoe had no defense, no explanation that could justify her actions. The evidence was overwhelming, the pattern undeniable. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, and full restitution. The judge was harsh, unforgiving. She'd targeted a vulnerable elderly person, he said. The fact that it was her own mother made it worse, not better. Zoe tried to contact me from prison. Letters, phone calls, messages through mutual friends. All ignored, all returned unopened. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. The woman who'd loved her unconditionally was gone, replaced by someone who understood that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's enablement. I took a job at a local clinic, working part-time to rebuild my savings. The money was modest, but it was mine. Earned honestly, saved carefully, protected fiercely. I moved to a smaller apartment, downsized my life, started over at 58. It wasn't the retirement I'd planned, but it was peace. Real peace, without the weight of worry about when the next crisis would come, when the next lie would be revealed. 6 months after the trial, I received a package in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside was a simple card, the kind you'd find in a gas station. The message was brief. "I'm sorry. I know you won't forgive me, but I'm sorry." It was signed with just an initial Z. I read it once, then put it in the trash. Some apologies come too late, cost too much, mean too little. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other women rebuild their lives after betrayal. Financial abuse is more common than people think, and it's often perpetrated by those closest to us. I shared my story carefully, selectively, with those who needed to hear it. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. You can mourn the person you thought they were while accepting the person they actually are. The money will never be fully recovered. The trust will never be rebuilt. The relationship will never be repaired. But I learned something valuable in the wreckage. Self-respect isn't selfish. Protecting yourself isn't cruel. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's destruction, even if that someone is your own child. I'm Helen, and I chose myself. Finally, completely, without apology. It wasn't the choice I wanted to make, but it was the choice I needed to make. And for the first time in years, I sleep peacefully at night.
Thank you for watching. Did you enjoy this gripping tale of family betrayal and justice? Subscribe to Family Stories Daily for more, and share your own family betrayal story in the comments.